And we are back to Two Addicts. My brother made a comment the other day about like you sound exactly the same. Like you say the same shit for all episodes. So I try to change that up a little bit and go, we are back. So it's not different.
Little salesmanship.
Yeah,
in there.
And also a fuck you to my brother. Like I can be different. Like, Two Addicts and a Moron, episode number 20 motherfucking 2.
22.
And
God, this is crazy. Like I was looking at the when we dropped Gil's episode, I was like, are we really at 21?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being in here at the first one and how like kind of we started out awkward. We were like Two Addicts. Like it was just super weird. And now we're like just sitting here chatting.
Yeah.
But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we've been bringing on guests here lately, and everybody, Kat Gibbons. Hey. No, just right here. You're good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. What's up, y'all?
Kat, right here. Okay, you don't lock eyes. Like don't look off the either. Don't smile. Nothing. Okay. No, we're just in here chatting.
Okay,
so,
cool. Good deal.
So we brought you in to give us a different perspective. I heard that you have an amazing story. I don't know much about it, but I do that on purpose so you can tell whatever you'd like in front of these cameras. So thank you very, very much for coming on and giving your time to us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
And so we have a couple traditions. You're going to introduce yourself last, but we're going to start with introducing me, Joey the Moron, in the middle, and off to the left.
Jay Klein.
Mike Stuboy, addict, meth, GHB.
And the guest of honor.
I'm Kat. I'm a heroin addict.
Kat, welcome.
Hey.
Let's go.
All right. And on to this second tradition. We're not going to stop it today.
No, we'll never stop this one. I know you haven't seen the episode or any episodes yet, but one thing we always want to do is before we start every episode, we always want to take time to think about the addict that's still out there suffering. Mm-hmm. So we do that before every episode. So let us get centered, let us get present, let us get focused, close our eyes, think about the addict that's still out there suffering, still out there struggling, the friends and family members that are struggling with them, and the addict that unfortunately could not be with us here today. Moment of silence. Thank you.
All right. Well, Kat, I know you just kind of touched on it. You said your DOC was heroin.
Mm-hmm. Well, it started out as heroin and then it graduated to fentanyl, but I identify as a heroin addict.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me too.
Well, yeah. Wow. Well, I guess let's just get right into it. And how do you feel like your addiction started?
So I don't have like any good reason to like be a heroin addict. Like I am an addict because I am bodily and mentally different than my fellows. Like period, end of story. Like I had a really good childhood. My parents were great, gave me everything that I wanted. And I like to feel different. And I did that as much as possible from a very like young age. It was very clear that I wasn't like my little brother who doesn't have this disease.
Yeah. How young?
I was like drinking and smoking weed when I was 13. I was like doing coke by 14. I got really strung out on Adderall and Vyvanse when I was in high school. Took some like pain pills for the first time. Started doing Xanax bars, really, really like that. So I was like an alcoholic and a Xanax addict the first time I went to treatment. And right before I went in, I tried heroin for the first time and I was like, damn.
Yeah.
So
that's the one.
Right. And so then after that, I went to treatment, but I knew I was like, I'm obviously going to revisit this when I get out. And so then I really just went from there. Started shooting dope.
So it was just a matter of just wanting to feel different. There wasn't, because I know like myself and like, I think something we'll find common within a lot of addicts is like, not every addict, of course, but like a lot is I didn't feel, I felt out of place. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. I never felt understood. I never felt accepted. Did
Yeah.
you have that experience as well?
Yeah,
Or?
that I definitely, and I really, I identify a lot with just the spiritual malady in that, like I am bodily and mentally and spiritually different than my fellows, and the fact that like, yeah, I always felt uncomfortable and out of place and was the victim, and I had no reason to be, you know what I mean? So yeah, I do identify with that
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
And so you mentioned too that I'm just curious about,
Please.
like, so Vyvanse and Adderall, not the same thing, but same sort of thing that they're trying to accomplish for.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
don't have ADHD like at all. So I was just tweaked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did also, that's like a part of my story too, is I, got addicted to heroin and started shooting meth too. So I was like a little double winner there. What goes up must come down, that whole kind of deal. So
Yeah.
So were you prescribed Adderall, or you were
no,
just getting
I was
it?
not. I was just buying it. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was to study for tests?
Originally, yeah, it was. I wanted to do good in school, and I always had really good grades. Like I'm actually, a relatively smart individual. And there was this guy where he had ADD, and he would give me his Adderall in exchange for doing his homework. And then all of a sudden, I just really liked the way that it made me feel, and I was like taking it on the weekends. And this guy that I was dating was like, "Why are you taking this on the weekends? Like, you're a drug addict." And I was like, "How dare you?" I was
Yeah.
like, dude, fuck off. You are just so out of line. But yeah, no, he knew what time it was for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the first time someone called me a drug addict, I felt the same way. I was like, how fucking dare you? A cop said, "You're a meth addict." And I was so fucking pissed. It offended me so bad. And then after I sat in, I was like, she's probably got a really good point. She's definitely spot on.
Yeah. So, and Vyvanse. So I've heard that that's a little more intense. Than
I feel like for me, Adderall was a little bit like more intense. I would just get the Vyvanse from whenever I couldn't get Adderall. But at the time, Adderall was pretty like readily available when
Still
I was in high
is.
school, like 2012 or 2008 to 2012, basically. So
I mean, they're handing that shit out like Skittles.
Right.
Still
Well,
very current.
yeah.
But I seen the other day that they're handing it out so much that there's a shortage on it in the United States for kids.
Yeah, I'm sure
they're
that they'll
giving-
get that figured out.
Yeah.
There seems like there's a lot of money behind that one.
yeah. Well, they were just selling them like 2 for $5, like at school.
Oh,
yeah,
You know
sure.
what I mean? So I was
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
so yeah, that, and then I also like when you don't have ADD and you're like tweaking out like that, you can only like stay functional for so long. So I started to do really good in school, and then I started to have mental breakdowns all the time, and like barely graduated high school because of it. I had to go to the psych
Mental
ward.
breakdowns.
Yeah. Because you can't sleep. You're fucking up tweaking all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Man, that's wild.
Yeah.
And then how did it progress? Like that was during high school years,
That
right?
was during high school years, and then I like barely graduated, and I tried Xanax for the first time, and then I really liked that. I thought that I was an uppers person, but it turns out that I'm not. Like I'm a heroin addict. I really like downers, So I tried Xanax, and then I tried like a Roxy, whatever, like an actual Roxy, and I really, really liked that too. And then after that, I just started chasing opiates, and I was doing opiates as much as I possibly could.
And that was post high school?
Post high school, yeah. So I was gonna go to college, and then I couldn't like function, so I took a gap year.
Yeah.
And so during my gap year, I ended up going to rehab, and I had tried heroin right before I went to rehab. And when I came out, I immediately drank and smoked weed and was back to doing dope, and I was back in rehab like not even a year later, and I had been shooting heroin like at that point.
So when in your usage in high school, was this because you were going to parties, or you were just this is just your peers? And,
I was hanging out with, like, I was like 14, hanging out with like 19-year-olds that
Right,
would
yeah.
like do coke, and it was just like not a good, I liked to get high though, like more so than my friends did. Like I would not ever want the party to stop. I remember I had some perk 10s from this woman I was babysitting for, and I gave one to my friend like in high school, and she puked, and I was like, man, that bitch just wasted one of my pills.
Yeah.
I was like, I am never gonna, you know what I mean? I'm never gonna share with anybody again. And that's normal people like don't think like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like I wanted to like hoard like my dope and do dope like every day, whereas like my friends were okay with, yeah, they partied on the weekends and I partied with them, but I would also like continue throughout the week. And then eventually I stopped partying with friends because I just wanted to get high by myself and not share my dope and not nobody's on my back about, hey, you're kind of out of control, you know.
And are you from Texas?
No, I'm originally from New York.
Okay.
So I grew up like 20 minutes outside the city in Westchester County, Larchmont, Mamaroneck. Pretty affluent area. And I'm pretty sure I'm like one of the very few people in my town that turned out to be like a heroin addict. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Which is crazy because like the whole East Coast and Midwest, that's where I'm from. Like our areas were like ravaged by, I mean, the whole country, but like Midwest and East Coast particular was just ravaged by opiates and heroin.
Yeah.
So your town missed that.
Like my high school, I think did a lot. I know probably some people like ended up having problems with like OxyContin, but I am a little bit too young for that. And I've never even seen one in real life, to be perfectly honest with you, you know, but I know it was like me and like 2 other people that I like found out ended up becoming heroin addicts, but I don't keep up with anybody from high school either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So how long have you been sober?
I've been sober since August 14th of 2022.
Hey, congrats.
So I'm about to get 2 years. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank
Congratulations.
you so much.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I usually ask that to start the whole thing.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
And so how do you feel like it progressed from there after the heroin use? How did it travel on? And then at what point did you come to the realization that like I've got a problem here?
Well, so I hadn't really experienced like I had a period of sobriety when I was like 19 for about 2.5 years, and I hadn't really experienced like a ton of consequences, but I did try to go to college twice during that time, and I dropped out both times. And one of the times I was like living on campus. It's like, bro, you can't show up to class and you live on campus. Like that's pretty like sad. You know what I mean? So
and you were sober?
No, I was doing
okay.
dope. I was drinking and doing dope, and I couldn't stop. You know, I was dating a guy that was a normie, and he had seen me kind of like progress from, oh, we're drinking craft beers, we're smoking weed, we're hanging out, and then all of a sudden I'm like super fucked up, like unconscious, like nodding off, and he's like taking videos of me being like, God. This isn't you, like look at yourself, you know, and it's fucked up. But yeah, so I went to rehab for the second time, and I had been shooting heroin, so it was a little bit more I took it a little bit more seriously this time, and I didn't have anywhere to go afterwards. And they said for me to go to a sober living, and I had, and this is like not cool, but I had bomb ass insurance. And so I just went to a sober living and was scholarshiped there. So I stayed there for like 8 months, and I got into the program and got sober. Didn't have a connection with God. And, you know, like I was faced with the opportunity to drink or use, and I had no defense against the first drink or drug. And I immediately went back to shooting dope. And then that's when things got like real crazy. You know, I had never even seen a gun in real life. Like I didn't know gangs were real. I had never even gotten a speeding ticket, like nothing. I had never tried meth. I went immediately to shooting meth. Like who does, that's not like normal. You know? So yeah, so things got really, really bad. Like at that point after I had a little bit of sobriety, and then I relapsed.
Okay. Yeah. And how long was that period?
Oh, it was up until August 14th of 2022.
Okay.
So it was like, I'm not the kind of person that's like, I show up back at the rooms and I get like 30 days or I get 60 days. Like I don't stay through a treatment program. Like y'all will never hear from me again, like straight up, you know? So that was just like a 5-year run. I went to treatment a couple times and just bounced after like 2, 3, 4 days. Probably I did that like 5 times. Yeah.
So during your addiction, when it was really bad, you know, I guess the second after you got sober and then you went right back to it.
The 5-year run?
Yeah, that 5-year run. Were there any points in there where you were like, I've got a problem? Like, did you ever have?
Yeah, I knew immediately after I shot dope, like for the first time, when I did relapse after having that period of sobriety, that I was fucked. You know what I mean? Like I knew, but I didn't have the intention of wanting to get sober. Like I would always tell my parents, like Like I will go back to AA. Like I really want to go back to AA, but I just don't feel like I want to go right now. But I hope that someday like that will come. And I know that day will come. And then over time it was like, I don't think it's in the cards for me. Like I literally think I'm going to die like this, because the way that my addiction progressed is like, I had never been somebody that had experienced like, I was one of those people in treatment where I'm like, oh, I don't want to like make my parents upset. You know what I mean? And then I really stopped caring about that. So, you know, like I lost my apartment, I lost my car, I was living on the street, I was in and out of jail. You know, like once you experience like those types of consequences, for me, it was like a lot harder to believe that I could possibly like get out from under that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it just
for
takes
sure.
it to a different kind of level.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it probably safe to say pretty hopeless.
Yeah. Oh, I was
You know,
totally
like,
hopeless. Yeah.
And I know you guys shared
Yeah.
similar stories in that, but
Yeah, I just felt like this is what my life is.
Right.
This is why God put me here.
yeah,
I'm just gonna get high and just tear shit up. And
Yeah.
this is like I heard one of my buddies that I used to get high with. He had been in and out of prison, and he was telling me one day. He said, "Man, I just can't wait till I die. Hopefully, I'm resurrected so I can start over." And that was the first time that I ever sat there and thought, like, he's like 42, and he's like, you could have another 58 years,
Right.
And he's ready to go now so he can start over because he fucked up so much shit. And I started thinking, I'm not ready to go now. Like, I can still change this if I can figure out a way. So that was the first time that I ever, hearing him say that made me start thinking, like, I don't want to think like that. I want to change it. I just don't know how. Now I just got to figure out the how. You know what I'm saying? But that was the first time I ever wanted to change it.
right,
When I was in my addiction, I was like, this is just what you're supposed to do. Like,
Right.
This makes me feel better.
right.
You know?
So you said, and I know you've had experience similar, sounds like similar story as far as the drugs, but when it flopped over to fentanyl, like I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but being like the normal guy, it's like heroin used to be the loaded word. Like when I was young, it was like, you don't do heroin. Like we were talking about it over the past couple episodes. It was like meth and heroin, stay away.
Yeah.
Right. And then as I got older, fentanyl became like the new kind of heroin, right? Like, so what made the crossover to that for you?
Yeah, sure. So when I was doing heroin, I was on the East Coast. So the heroin in New York, where I was originally using, is different than the heroin in California, which is where I was at when I relapsed, because I went to sober living in California. So that's where I came from to come to Texas. I was in California.
And why California? Was that where the treatment center
That's
was?
where the treatment center was in Arizona.
Okay.
And they were like, you could go to this sober living in LA. And I was like, okay, like I have nothing to go back to anyway. I might as well. And I kind of just put roots down there. But then I, ended up getting loaded. I moved to Orange County. It was, the heroin is different in California. It's tar. And I really didn't like that. So I was trying to get like China White, but it ended up really just being fentanyl. So I was shooting fentanyl actually for a handful of years. Very dangerous.
And so, where did it take you? Like,
Yeah.
people. I mean, I know for me, like I plunged through many bottoms, but like, what are some of the bottoms and the next bottom? And,
Yeah.
It's a great question.
and the experiences that it took you through on the course until you reached whatever your final bottom was.
Yeah, there's a lot, and it's important for me to remember too, the first time I went to treatment when I hadn't really experienced these consequences, I sat, in a group of women in this treatment center, and some of these women had been to jail, and some of them were using needles, and some of them were dancers or whatever, and I was like, I'm not like that. I'm not like that. I'm not like that. I obviously don't have this issue that y'all have, and therefore I don't need this program. Right. And this is a progressive disease. And so it did progress for me. Right. And so, I basically willingly gave up like my entire life. Like I had a really good job in the treatment industry. I started off as a part-time tech that didn't know how to drive. They paid for me to go to school, and I was director of residential services for this treatment facility. I had like a paid off car. I had like money in the bank, and like once I got loaded, I got fired for showing up high. And then I lost my apartment. I got a different apartment, and I thought that if I moved to Orange County, like I would stay sober there, and I couldn't. And it became really clear to me that I was about to either lose my job. I was either going to lose my job or I was going to stop doing dope and keep my job. And I decided to keep doing dope when I resigned. So,
Yeah.
you know, so that's like, and I had a dog, you know, like, those kinds of things, like material things, right? Those go away. And so that was a new experience for me of, I didn't know what it was like to be homeless, you know? So I was kind of, I was living in my car for a little bit. I've lived in a broken down RV, not once, but twice, 2 separate times.
Wow.
So, you know, I was in California, so I was in Venice, on 3rd and Rose, which is like, if you know Venice, it's not a nice area
Not
to be.
a
It's
good
right by
place.
Venice Beach. And I was sleeping in a tent on the sidewalk, you know what I mean? I was flying a sign. At one point I was like sleeping in a park. When it rains like really hard, it reminds me of this time where I was just living in the park and I was doing so freaking bad. And I had never experienced like doing that bad, you know, and I was just passed out in the grass. And there was like a piece of cardboard on top of me to like keep me like dry, you know, and it was like torrential downpouring. You know, like that shit is so gnarly, you know? So that kind of experience, in and out of jail, you know, selling drugs and stuff like that, putting myself in some really, really dangerous situations. Like I've been like kidnapped and all this, you know,
What?
that shit. Yeah.
Jeez.
I've had to jump like out of like make a break for it. Like, you know, somebody like pulls up at the gas station and I just like run and I knocked on this dude's car and I'm like, please let me in your car. Like, you know,
Oh my
me with
God.
you. Yeah. So, you know, like some crazy stuff, and it's really by the grace of God that I'm still alive, you know, but, yeah, I mean, this bottom was like, I was just a completely different like person. And I had never known like anybody that had, like lived that kind of lifestyle. And I just became so okay with it, you know, which is like the scariest thing for me. I think that's like the deepest part of my bottom, is that I just really became okay, with not having a roof over my head, not having clothes on my back or food in my stomach. Like if I had a shot of dope, like I was content, you know, like I was sleeping at a bus stop. I would, yeah, I would be, when I came to treatment this last time, I came on August 11th to go to rehab, but I stayed in the airport baggage claim for 3 days shooting dope. I swear to
Whoa.
God, I'm not joking. They came to pick me up and I took the SIM card out of my phone and just was MIA. And so I, you know, like squatting like that, like being okay with just like that is fucking out of control. I didn't have any money for food or anything like that. My parents had thought I got arrested on the way to go to rehab. You know what I mean? My mom had to physically fly from Montana to the airport in Austin to come get me and physically transport me to detox because I cannot, like left to my own devices, like I will not get sober.
What's crazy is like I think about some of the stuff that I used to do back then. Like I would never do it now, but I was so okay with doing it then. It's like not having electric, water, like living wherever, hanging out where the fuck ever, bringing my daughter to trap houses, like putting her in danger. I would never do those things now. And I think about it like back then I was just okay with it. Like this was just what we do, you know? And that's what people that have never had this disease, they don't understand that. Like people at work would always be like, how can you just not stop? Because I fucking can't. I don't know how. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how. They thought that, you know, you're going to lose your job. Like you're going to get drug tested every week. And if you fail, you're going to get fired. And I was okay with that because I didn't know any other way.
Right.
You know, I'll try to beat the test.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But
Sure.
I'm going to carry piss on me everywhere I go.
I did that for a year straight. Surprise
Carry
drug test
pee on-
twice, passed both times. I'm like, I told y'all I'm depressed.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I
I
don't
keep
think
that
so.
thing on me.
Yeah, exactly.
So sad.
Straight up. One time they were like, you can't go to your car, you can't go to your office, blah, blah, blah. I was wearing a floor length skirt. And so I like put my legs like over my purse while the person's driving me to the drug testing place and like slid the pee like up the little
All
container.
the way.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you know, like on some
Little
crazy
5-hour
shit.
energy
You
pit,
know,
yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
like, how can you, like, it really is insane, like the amount of effort that I would put towards being able to like maintain my addiction. You know, like I worked so hard to whatever scheme I'm trying to pull or whatever, you know, hotel, Airbnb, all this crazy, you know, stuff that I'm trying to, effort I'm trying to put, you know what I mean, towards
Well, I
maintaining
say
this
it.
lifestyle.
I've said this a lot, but I don't understand. Like I did not I still don't. I never will understand the lengths and the levels that you guys go through and the defense that you give to like almost every step. It's like, I'll never do that. And then you do that. And you're like, oh, well, I'll never. I mean, you said it when you went into your first rehab. You're like, oh, I'm not like her. I'm not like her. I mean, they said the same thing. Everybody we've had on where like they go into that initial time and they're like, I am not like these people.
Right.
I actually never thought like that. I never looked at myself as different when I was in the rooms. It's not because I didn't think I was different or the same. That wasn't even a thought in my mind.
Right.
It was, I'm not letting go of this. I need this in my life. And my life is H plus me equals happiness. And if heroin's not in the equation, then I'm not part of it.
Right.
I don't care what happens. Like I can be in rehab and I could be I could be an A+ student in rehab. And I was every time most active person. I'm doing all my step work packet. I'm sharing my ass off in the process groups and I'm divulging my soul to everybody.
Helping
And
other people
I
with
got
their
50-year-olds
steps.
looking at me like, oh my God,
Yeah.
you're such a bright young man.
Yeah.
And then when it's time to go, I know it's like my brain kicks into that addict mind again. It's like, okay, I got 5 days left. Okay, so I don't have it. Okay, so my mom gave me money so I could get cigarettes, right? I'm not going to smoke cigarettes the rest of my stay here. So when they go to store, I'm broke. I'll bum off people in there to get by for my nicotine fix. And because I know exactly the second I leave, I'm going to have some money and I'm going to get at least that one bag. And I'm going to get high again because I wasn't ready to let go. Because I can't picture my life without it.
Well, it was like, left to your own devices, right? It's
Right.
like if you're left to your own devices, that's
Right.
what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And something I do also want to point out about like doing all these things that I like wasn't okay with doing, like these lines in the sand, like every time you cross one, it's easier to cross the next one. It's easier to cross the next one. It's easier to cross the next one. And all of a sudden I'm flying a fucking sign living in a park. There was a time where like, of course I would not be okay with that. Like what the
Right.
fuck, you know?
And it might not have even been long before it.
Right, exactly. But it really just like it's this, you know, disease is cunning, baffling, and powerful, you know, and it's absolutely crazy. Like, you know, how fucking delusional I was, you know, and like I went to the psych ward for 12 days and I kicked cold turkey while I was there. They did not give me, they gave me Vistaril, and Ensure. And I mean, I was like, I didn't sleep for 12 fucking days, dude. I was so sick. They were like pushing me around in my roommate's like wheelchair. Like I was really fucked up. And, when my late boyfriend picked me up, I was like, I need you to bring me a milkshake from Jack in the Box. I need you to bring, you know, the bong and all the dope and all that kind of stuff. You know, like I can kick like violently for 12 days, like in a psych ward, after slashing my wrists open with a box cutter, like, cause I'm that psychotic, and want to do dope right after. I'm not even like, you know, in my head, like think about that. Like I've completed a detox, like, you know, and I'm not even giving that a second thought. It's insane.
You know,
I remember when Rachel was on, she said like she would get out of rehab, or she would go through detox and get out of rehab and be driving to her dealer crying, asking herself, why the fuck am I about to do this to myself again?
Yeah.
Because you know what, you're going to end up stopping again and having to go through detox and all that bullshit
Right.
again. And apparently heroin's horrible coming off of, but she could not stop herself from fucking going and picking up,
Right.
knowing I'm about to go through this all over again.
Right. And I don't even think like I never even like got to that point where I was like it passed a point where I thought I could be doing something different. So I was just really okay with it. So like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it was just I really did not think that I was going to come out of this one. It got really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really bad. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of talk in here. We've had it a couple times where people have that moment, you know, where it's like, I'm ready. Like it's kind of time. And for Mike, it was the threat of losing his daughter. For Jay Klein, it was the thought of seeing, he was reading through Facebook in the
'Cause I had
hospital
overdosed.
because he overdosed. Like he was in the hospital, and he was just like, I wasn't invited to the family pictures. Like, you know, you just basically watched his life pass him by,
Sure.
probably sober. So I Am Creechy was on here. He talked about a cake in rehab where he thought he was going to leave, and like, some guy said, "Hey, we need you out here," and he was like, "I'm out of here." He was like, "Good, I finally," and they had a birthday cake for him, and he was just like, that moment changed everything for him. Like that little birthday cake
Yeah.
got him sober, essentially.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know what, did you have a moment?
I did. I had a couple moments.
Because you said it got really bad, right?
Yeah, it got really bad. So I met this guy outside the Motel 6 in Santa Ana, California, and
Good motel.
we fell in love. And no, but I really did. I cared about him a lot, and we were together for 3 years, and we were, you know, doing dope and doing fraud and whatever. And there's like this thing called like a lockout. So it's like a recording studio, kind of basically like a room that you can like rent out, almost like an office space. And we were like living there, like doing dope, selling dope and stuff like that. And we had no money, but we had 7-Eleven rewards points, and I wanted him to go get me a drink from 7-Eleven because we're squatting, so we don't have like a kitchen, you know what I mean, or anything like that. And he got shot. He got killed in like a mass shooting. So there was this guy, and
Holy shit.
went on a shooting spree on July 11th, 2022, across 3 counties. He was in Los Angeles, San Bernardino, and Orange County, and he came to Orange County last. And he was there getting me something to drink. And this guy was just like a nut job. He's like a 20-year-old, like with a gun. And he had went to like some donut shops and some 7-Elevens. And you don't go to 7-Eleven to like rob somebody because they only have like $100 in
Right.
there. You know what I mean? And so he shot one person and killed one person and shot a couple other people. And my boyfriend was getting me something to drink outside of 7-Eleven, and he was trying to like, he was sticking up this homeless dude, and the homeless guy was like, I don't have any money, and was like showing him his wallet. And I wasn't there, but this is what the news story said afterwards, because the homeless guy came and spoke up about it. And he was like still waving the gun in his face, and my boyfriend, his name was Matt, and he was like, you heard the guy, he doesn't have any money. And then he shot him like right here and killed him.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And so that was crazy. That was horrible. I was calling all these hospitals and trying to see what hospital he was at. And then I found out he never went to a hospital, and he just died right there. So the craziest thing about that too is like, so in that moment, I remember like having to tell his mom and stuff, and really finding out, like, the cops would not tell me that he died. The way that I found out he died is I was Googling like 7-Eleven Santa Ana like shooting, and it said like the victim was pronounced dead on scene, like in the news article. So that's how I found out that he died for sure. And so I was like, in that moment, I was like, okay, I am either going to like do dope and like die and like kill myself and overdose on purpose so I can go like be with him, or I'm gonna try to like get better. Like I didn't know what to do, but my thought too, like after finding out for sure he was dead, was like, okay, well, how much dope do we have left? You know what I mean? Like we're just like so fucked.
Yeah.
And so that was like a moment, you know, I called my parents, and they each came out. They're divorced, and they each came out and flew out. And I was still doing dope. Like my dad was staying in a hotel room, and I was like in his hotel bathroom, like, you know, hours and hours in that bathroom. You know, it's torture for your family, for real.
Yeah.
You know, and they left, and gave me some money, and they were like, and I hadn't spoken to my parents, by the way, in a couple years. They had like completely cut me off. They were never like supporting me like financially, but I was like on their insurance. And when I was in jail, my mom would put money on my books, and my dad would like send me books and stuff. So it had gotten so bad that I was totally like alienated from my family. And they basically said like, you should really consider like, you know, going to treatment now, because I was so I did not want to leave him. Like, I did not want to leave him. And he really liked to be in the element that we were in, where you're making money and you're hitting licks and you're selling dope and it's cool. And it's like, I had this experience of sobriety where like I knew like that life could be different. And like, you know, we stopped getting that COVID unemployment money, you know what I mean? So we weren't like chilling the way that we used to, and it was hard. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. But I didn't ever want to leave him, you know? And so, I did dope and lived in that little, like squatted in that lockout room, and just cried and smoked dope and shot dope for a few weeks. I flew out for his funeral, and I nodded out in the airport and missed the connecting flight. So I actually missed his funeral, but I got there on time for the interment, and they like reopened the casket for me. And I didn't have anywhere to go, so I stayed with his mom, and she took me to the methadone clinic, and I was there. I remember laying there waiting for them to call me for my like induction, and I literally was like, fuck, like out loud, like screaming, you know, and they were like, oh, like, you know, been there, girl, you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
You know, but
This is normal.
right,
Yeah.
you know, seriously though. And it's like, dude, you know, I haven't changed my clothes, I haven't washed my hair, like I'm crying, I'm sick, like yeah, it was crazy. And even then, like I still got high again after that, you know. I got it set up for me to go to rehab. My dad agreed to pay for me to go to treatment because I didn't have insurance anymore. But I was like, I'm not gonna go to treatment sober. So like real quick, I got a plane ticket back to California, met up with my friend, you know, got loaded again, flew back to Austin to get picked up by the treatment center, and stayed again, you know, like I said, for a couple of days doing dope. And then
You stayed in the airport doing dope.
in the airport doing dope for 3 days. Yeah,
In Austin,
exactly.
right?
In Austin.
This is where you said you were at baggage claim.
Baggage
Okay.
claim, Southwest.
So were you just hiding in the bathrooms, or what were you doing?
Yep, I was hiding in the bathroom.
Like Tom Hanks in the terminal.
And dude, and I
crazy.
met some dude that ordered me a bunch of Uber Eats from Don's Barbecue, you know, so because I didn't have any food, I was like starving, and I would just be sitting there like nodding out, and I had all this barbecue, spilled it all over the floor. And this woman was like, I came back from the bathroom to like, you know, my little seat, and she was like, you can't like be. I was like, oh sorry, like I was really tired, blah blah blah, you know. But my mom came to pick me up, and I'm like, I told y'all I was waiting for someone to pick me up, you know, like what?
Yeah, it only took 3 days.
right, you know. But yeah, it was gnarly, you know.
Yeah.
But and it's crazy because it's like, that is the insanity of this thing for me. Like I lose the power of choice, right? Like I have this opportunity like ready for me to go. Like all I need to do is like, they're here to pick me up. I pick up the phone, I get in the car, and if I have dope, especially,
Yeah.
I will not do that.
Yeah.
I will not do
not
that.
going.
You know,
Yeah.
right? And I'm lucky that my parents, you know, like put up with that and still, you know, paid for me to go to treatment, because I'll tell you, like, it wasn't a promising situation, you know. Like I had been to treatment, you know, a handful of times and left after a couple days every time, you know.
Right.
How many times have you been to treatment? Would you say?
I have completed treatment successfully 3 times,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have been to treatment I think like 4 times, and then 1 psych ward. And both times, like, or all the times, I would only make it like a couple days. One time I completed my whole detox. I was in San Diego because I was like, I'm going to go far away. I'm not going to know anybody here, blah, blah, blah. You know, I have no money. I'm in treatment in San Diego. I finished my detox, and I'm like, man, fuck this shit. I'm out of
Yeah.
here. You know, so I call somebody, and they give me like $10 on Cash App, and I hit up my friend, and I'm like, dude, if you come pick me up, I'll give you $10. That's all I have right now, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, that motherfucker drove down from Orange County, San Diego, picked me up from rehab.
Wow.
Yep.
And what is that, like a 6-hour drive?
No, it's only like 2 hours,
okay.
but still,
Still
you know,
pretty far.
And it's like, here's the thing too, is like the people that I was spending time with at the time, they're not very dependable, and they don't have much going on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this dude is like
They don't
probably
show up on time.
the only dude that has a vehicle, you know. And as soon as he picked me up, we didn't even get to the freeway, and he is all tweaking out, rummaging through, like pulled out the stereo dash, and he's digging through, and we're posted up at a closed gas station. I'm like, bro, we're gonna get fucking popped. Like,
Oh my
this is
God.
not
Yeah.
good. And the cops come up, and they're like, what are you doing? I lie about my name, and they pull out the fingerprint shit, and like,
No
it was just
way.
so bad.
Oh no.
But it was COVID, so they were like, I'm not going to take you to jail, but I am going to tell your PO.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's just crazy. Like, you know, as soon as I leave, I don't even make it to the freeway. I left treatment about 30 minutes prior, and I'm already getting jammed up like by the cops. You know what I mean? And yeah, I got a lot of free passes during COVID.
Well, it sounded like a lot of people did.
Yeah.
You know, during that time.
Yeah.
That wasn't a very productive time for a lot of addicts.
Right.
I
was,
don't think.
It was the most productive time of my life as
it
an
was
addict.
because
Well, that's what I mean. Is
Yeah.
I mean,
COVID allowed us, and a lot of people, not even just addicts, to fucking game the system.
Right.
yeah.
It gave you an opportunity to
It gave scammers the best scam.
gave
Right.
scammers the best scam.
Right, yeah.
I told you about when my lick
Yeah.
was department stores. And you know, expensive bottles of cologne.
Because you're masked up everywhere.
Exactly,
You
yeah.
can go
And it was
wearing
okay.
a bandana up to your. My friend went with a sock over his head to the bank, straight up,
Sock.
and they
Yeah.
just let him go like
Yeah.
that. You know, it was just. But you know what's crazy to me, like thinking back on that, is like I have friends that were sober through COVID or were sober and relapsed during COVID, and it's like. And also normal people were dying all
It was
over
the worst
place.
time of our
People
life.
were afraid. There was this national pandemic, and
Yeah.
I never viewed COVID like that. I was like, I'm chilling so hard. They
That's
can't
crazy.
evict me.
Yeah.
I'm getting all this unemployment. I can go whatever. I can do whatever. Nobody's all this social distancing. Nobody needs to. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
just.
you kind
Yeah.
of
Well, when I said productive, that was a poor choice
Yeah,
of words.
I understood what you meant.
But
though.
it's like anti.
It allowed me to. I was productive in like maintaining my lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know what
No,
I mean?
yeah, yeah.
It
I was
really-
one of the first at work to get COVID when it first came out.
Yeah.
I got it like in January or February. And I remember getting sick, and I just thought I was dope sick.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had bad meth. I was like, fuck, I must have smoked some bad shit. So I called in work and said, hey, I'm not coming in today. I don't feel like I call in every fucking week.
yeah.
And I'm calling in like, hey, I don't feel good. And they're sending me text messages like, you're a piece of shit. How many times are we going to fucking give you? You've been fired so many times. And I really was sick. It was like one of the first times I was ever really, really sick. And, but yeah, I came back into work like 3 days later, and they finally sent me home. And then COVID came out on the news like, this is some shit. And I was like, oh, that's what I have.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I just thought I was dope sick.
I've
yeah.
never gotten COVID that I'm at least that I'm aware of. But I was in jail when there was like an outbreak and it was like on the news. And I remember, you know, standing up and watching it on the TV with some of the girls and yeah, but I've never gotten COVID that I'm aware of still to this day, never. And I
Yeah.
never took obviously any precautions like
Yeah,
that.
well, yeah.
You know,
I don't
was
think
like,
any of us have.
Yeah.
Dude, I got COVID in treatment, dude. That
Yeah,
was
I
the
heard that
worst
happened.
experience
Yeah.
of my life. I only got it one time, and it was when I went to treatment. And then I also lost the woman I was in love with, kind of like an addict relationship.
Yeah.
But really, I was in love too.
Right.
And that was the worst treatment stay I've ever had.
Hmm.
But you know, like COVID is, I think I shared about it with. Oh no, I shared about it on a different thing. But COVID was what flipped the script for me because I was on the methadone program, and like I was maintaining life. I would still drink here and there and smoke here and there, but like my life wasn't too unmanageable.
Right.
I was maintaining.
Sure.
But I wasn't working a program. I was on methadone, so I wasn't doing heroin. So I was like, fine, I have a job. Life's all right. I tell you, as soon as COVID hit, it was like, I don't know. See, I don't do well, and a lot of addicts don't do well when I'm full of fear. And COVID like perpetuated the most fear I've ever experienced in my life because I was like, oh my God, this is scary as fuck.
Yeah.
Like everything that I was working on was, you know, music wise, like I was making moves that way was put on hold.
Yeah.
So like all my dreams, I'm like, oh my God, where did all this go? I watched it vanish in thin air. And then, you know, on TV, on the news, you have literally fucking death tickers
Yeah.
24/7 and it's going up. And it's like, I've never been propagated with so much fear and just being so scared and like uncertainty.
And you went through that in California.
Yeah,
Where-
but I'll tell you, I never felt like that.
I didn't feel
ever,
like that either.
because I cannot see past myself, and I am so delusional that also like I really do have that mindset of like that will never happen
Not
to
happen
me.
to me,
It'll
yeah.
never happen to me, dude. And then my boyfriend gets killed in a mass shooting. You know, like the reality of it is, and you know, I've had so many friends like pass away. It's like. It will happen to you, you know, like it's really just a matter of time. But I was so out of touch. You know, I didn't know that people stormed the Capitol. I
Really?
didn't know that happened. I swear to God. I was watching some show and then they like referenced it and I was like, damn, that's crazy. And then I looked it up and it had actually happened and I had no idea. Like that's how like removed from reality I was. You know, I went by a different name for like 5 years. You know, I was completely immersed in this lifestyle, you know, of doing drugs and
That's
committing
nuts.
crimes, doing crime.
That's nuts. So I got a question for you as far as I just want to dive into the fentanyl thing, and you're going to be able to speak to this too, but I don't think I've ever asked you on here, but what does fentanyl make you feel like? Is that an opiate? Am I?
Hell
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell it is.
He's a moron.
Yeah, sorry, I'm ignorant to
I
all
know
of
my
that.
my roommate in treatment was like, she was like, what's Toradol? And I was like, girl, that ain't shit.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Don't give me
so
that.
it's cool. You're good. It's an opiate, yeah, and it is very. What I was doing was not like the perk like pills. It was just like
Straight
rock fentanyl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, have you ever like had a dental procedure and you take like a Percocet?
Yeah.
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like it makes you feel warm and fuzzy. Your insides feel like velvet. You get hella sleepy.
And it's like how I mean they talk about like the babyest amount kills people, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so how do you manage, how do you work your way around that
Well-
when you're in there?
So here's the thing for me. Like, first off, I just want to say I was a loyal heroin addict. Like, fentanyl has been around for a while.
Yeah.
I didn't want any parts of fentanyl, not because I was afraid of overdosing. I was just I know what heroin produces. This is what I want because I used to smoke fentanyl patches in high school and I was like, this shit's
it does suck.
it doesn't do anything for
whack.
me. And so I was a loyal heroin addict, and then unfortunately I was forced to switch because my guy, you know, he went from tar to China fentanyl, and then it was like, bro, I'm only doing fentanyl now. I'm like, dude, fine, I'll take it. And it was just a seamless transition. And I'm not saying everyone's body is the same because it's not. And there's no recipe for the right concoction or amount. But I was doing at least a minimum of 0.5 gram of fentanyl a day, at least a point every 2 hours. If more, if possible. If I could get a gram, I would do a gram a day.
Is that a lot? I don't know.
I mean, everyone's tolerance is different, but I mean, a point is, it's kind of a lot.
Is
Yeah.
it compared to like a gram of meth?
A
If you're
point,
doing
it's a point of a
meth?
tenth. So
Yeah.
a tenth of a
A
gram.
tenth of a gram.
There's
Yeah.
10 tenths in a gram.
Okay.
So
Yeah, and I don't want to like war story too much, but like, you know, the way you take a dab, like a
Yeah.
dab.
Uh-huh.
So I was just like doing that with rocks of fentanyl.
You were smoking it.
So yeah.
yeah, I was shooting it.
Right, and I was shooting it originally too, but I started dating Matt, and some people can tolerate it, and I had been shooting it, but he had just gotten out of prison, and so he, like the couple of times that we shot it together, he would fall out, and I'm like, dude, you know, so I just stopped shooting it.
See,
and started
and
smoking it.
honestly, I
Yeah,
really
the
didn't.
warning.
Can't hang.
I really didn't like.
hang, bro.
I really didn't like the effect. I mean, it wasn't heroin, and I didn't really necessarily like the effect produced by fentanyl because while it has a longer half-life, meaning it stays in your body
Yeah.
longer and it takes it longer to break down, the high, at least for me, was not the same. The high was relatively short.
What I will say too is like most people, you know, that have had this experience, I think that have gotten sober like in this era is, yeah, you know, there were more heroin addicts because there used to be more heroin, and now it's really just fentanyl, and so that's what we do. You know what I mean? It's like there used to be a lot of OxyContin, so there were a lot of OxyContin addicts, and then the OxyContin went away and people started doing heroin. So it's really basically like what is available. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna stop doing dope because there's no more hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just
Gonna figure it out.
right.
Right.
You know, so, and it's crazy because it is, my mom would be like, you're playing Russian roulette with your life. Like every time you put a needle in your arm, like, how do you not see that? And, what hurt me most was that statement like didn't make me feel like I wanted to get sober, you know, like I felt guilt that was not enough to be like a wake up call for me, you know, like, and it's that fraud, the emotional appeal component, you know, like, where it's not good enough for someone that I love and care about to tell me
Yeah.
like, hey, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
That doesn't flick a switch for me, you know,
Yeah.
like it just
Right.
doesn't
That's
do
the
that.
insanity.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think I fell under the spell of delusion in the aspect of, I think I've spoken about this too. I was invincible.
Yeah.
Like
Me
I
too.
went 12 years of using heroines for
Right.
as much as I could every time. No overdoses. I walked through the harshest blocks. Nothing happened.
Right.
I had this false sense of like ego, pride, and like I'm really
Yeah.
I'm
Flew a sign.
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
like, I'm homeless under bridges. Really, I'm fucking G'd up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sick, but I'm like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna die.
Right.
And it
And-
was crazy because it does get to a point too where I'm like, if I do die, like I'm really not fucked up about it, you know,
Right.
like which is really sad,
Yeah.
you know. And I remember my dad saying to me one time, he was like, "You are killing me and your mom having to watch you do this," and I'm like, I live on the other side of the country, like I don't even talk to y'all, like how is this affecting you guys, you know? And he was like, I'm not gonna let you kill me while you kill yourself. You know, if you keep going like this, you are going to die, and it will really hurt me, and everyone will be sad, and time will pass, and people will move on, and you will be a memory that when I think of you, I will be sad, and I will move on with my life, and that's what'll happen. And that's some heavy shit, and
That's super heavy.
right, but you know, I kept getting high, you know what I mean, for a couple of years after that.
My mom
you know?
told me she's after I suffered my fifth overdoses, and I divulged that to her. She said, "If you would have died, I would have killed myself." I
Yeah.
was like, "Are you?" And I never thought like, dude,
Right.
I was so like, you know, I'm hurting myself. I'm not hurting you. I'm
Right.
hurting
Yeah.
me.
Well, yeah, we never thought
That's
that we were hurting
that's
anybody
the
else.
you
That's
know
a delusion.
the delusion for
Yeah.
sure, you know. And I would never think that I'm someone that's delusional, you know, like it's really and that's I guess
Right.
you know
Right.
the delusion,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
the really the beauty of, you know, like the 12-step program that I
Absolutely.
work is just I get to really figure these things out about myself that I had no fucking idea, you know. Like my sponsor, when I did my inventory with her, and I'm telling her about this situation where my ex had relapsed, and I knew that he had relapsed, and I'm still choosing to actively spend time with him while I'm not working a program. Why do I do that? Because I want to get loaded. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so he is getting high, and he has some dope, and he offers me some dope, and I don't even give it a second thought. You know, I'm like, yep, for sure. And then I'm telling her this, and I'm like, I'm resentful at so-and-so because he got me high. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
She's like, you're not a victim. You are a volunteer. You
Yeah.
know? And like, I really carried that. And I would like, you know, tell people like, you know, I used to be sober for 2.5 years and this dude got me high. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, you know, but it's really crazy. Just the lies that like, you know, my brain will tell me. It's just so wild, you know?
I never thought about that. You're a volunteer instead of a victim. That's
Right.
fucking a good line.
I was an active participant, you know what I mean? And it's crazy because I also like the consequences of my actions, right? I was like mad at God for the situations that like I had gotten myself into. And I'm like, oh, you know, like if God was like real, like how could this you know, these horrible things happen, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And it's like, you know, God is not like there to prevent me from experiencing all the consequences of my actions. That's
Right.
not what God is. You
Right.
know what I mean? But I'm just so self-absorbed and self-centered that I'm like, God, why are you putting the world against me? And it's like, girl, you know, like you're not doing anything to help yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah.
Well,
I used
the-
to do that same thing.
the
Like,
foxhole
where you at,
prayers.
God? Where you at?
The
Right.
foxhole prayers that you
And-
talk about.
yeah.
Like, you know,
And
where
now
you're.
I realize like he was there the whole time.
Right. And I do want to say too, like that moment where I was like, I found out that he had died, and I'm like, man, like what the fuck am I gonna do? And I'm literally by myself. And this was like, we were together all the time, you know, unless one of us was in jail. But I was really for real like alone, and I was like, fuck, like what the fuck do I do? You know, and like I know now that God was with me like in that moment. And I really do also like identify that experience as like for me someone that never believed in God, and I never had any relationship with God, and now I, you know, identify as a Christian and my higher power is God, and some people's is not, and that's great, but that's just my experience is that I have faith now, you know, like fully. that's when I feel like I was like saved, because I had to be forcibly removed from like that lifestyle, you know, and it was only something that severe that gave me like a very small window of opportunity to be willing to try something different.
A tragedy.
You know? Yeah, exactly. Right. You
Yeah.
know, so
No, that makes sense.
yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so after that, that's when you came to Austin.
Yeah, I
and,
came
like,
to Austin. I mean, I got high for a couple more weeks.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
but I did.
yeah.
I did. You
Still
know,
had
Yeah,
some
you,
left.
you
Wasn't
gotta
instant.
use up the dope.
Exactly.
Yeah, you
Yes.
got to use
right,
it up, right?
Exactly.
Like, yeah,
And so
You can't travel with it.
yeah,
well, yeah.
yeah.
Are you?
I've never traveled with it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So I did. And actually, so, and I do like kind of want to talk about this, even though it's like a controversial subject, is like I am in an abstinence-based program, right? But when I got to treatment, I first got there, and like fentanyl for me like has this psychological hold on me that's so, it used to have this hold on me that's so intense. Like even if I've completed my detox, like it is like I want to peel off all my skin and set myself on fire. I want to get high so bad, and fuck it, I'm just gonna bounce, you know, like I'm just gonna run, right?
Right.
And so I got to treatment, and I had finished my detox. I went to detox and I went to rehab, and I was like, I can't do this, like I want the form, like I'm gonna AMA, like I'm gonna leave, blah blah blah. And my parents had made it very clear too. They were like, you know, they were helping me out this one last time, and then it was going to be over. You know, my dad was like, if you leave, I'm literally never going to speak to you again. And he was not lying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they offered to take me to the methadone clinic. And so I was on methadone for the 60 days that I was in that treatment program. And I had never like abused methadone or anything. I had never even done it before. And then I switched from the methadone to Suboxone because I just didn't want to be there were like side effects, and I just didn't really like it, right? And so I
Right.
switched to Suboxone, and I was on it for 6 months, and it allowed me to stay in the rooms long enough to have a spiritual experience with the steps, and to really trust that God like could restore me to sanity. And I tapered off like over the course of 6 months, and so I've been off it for a year, you know, and I'm very active in my program. And I think it's like a really important thing to talk about in the midst of this fentanyl crisis, is that like, you know, while I work an abstinence-based program and, you know, like I am fully abstinent today, the only reason I was able to like grasp the solution is because I had this life raft, you know what I mean?
Right.
And
Well, that's what it was meant for.
right, you know, and of course everybody can do, you can, you know, whatever, drink too much energy drinks or whatever
Hell
the fuck,
yeah.
take too much gabapentin, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever the fuck people do, you know, like, but for me, like the alternative was like, I'm going to go get high and I'm going to die and I don't care. You know what I mean? And yeah, it was just, it's something that I know like can be controversial, you know? So
Yeah.
I think it can be useful for the right reasons. You know,
right.
I think it's like what you just said. It's you mentioned it too. It was brought in to get people to taper people off.
Right.
It wasn't brought in to get you to be addicted. Like I've got a friend that's been on it for 6 years.
Right.
And he's not probably ever he doesn't have any plans of getting off.
Right.
It.
Listen, I was a masterful user of Suboxone. I used it in between times. I never used it as directed.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that because that was my experience, I should be a blanket, you know.
Yeah.
There should be like, and I also don't, I'm also someone that believes, I don't judge no one's recovery.
Right.
And I don't, it's not for me to say,
What's wrong or right?
Right.
you know, but I agree. Abstinence is for me the only way. And,
Right.
you know, I think we're at a point nowadays. I think Gil spoke about this last episode. We're at a point nowadays where like life and death has been accelerated. It's always been life and death, but now it's this is accelerated.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
this isn't, you know, we're not, there's no chances like there was.
Right.
back in the
People
day.
are dying before they hit rock bottom.
Exactly.
Right.
Essentially.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? And so it's like, you know, and also too, even in this recovery community, if like you're really trying to like fight it and white knuckle it like tooth and nail, and like you can't, and like you secretly relapse and you had a period of sobriety and you're using in secret and then you overdose and there's nobody there to help, you know what I mean? It's just like that's that kind of stuff for some people can be preventable with, with Suboxone, honestly.
Yeah.
I believe, you know what I mean?
But I think it's my philosophy that I think that, there should always be an exit plan,
Oh, for sure. For sure.
because
And honestly, I will tell you too, like when I was getting off of it, my doctor was like, okay, so you're like thinking about moving out of sober living, and you just got a job and you're wanting to get off this, you know what I mean? Like he was kind of laying it out for me that I'm sure that what he sees a lot is people wanting to get off of it so that they could
Get high.
get high. You
Yeah.
know what I
For sure.
mean? And like, but I just like, I, was confident that God had restored me to sanity. You know what I mean? Like I really felt like I had that experience and I didn't want to be on this substance anymore. And if I could have just stopped it like right then and there, but instead of doing that, like I did what I was supposed to do and did a very long, you know what I mean? Like, taper. But it's never, I don't know. It's just, I think that, it shouldn't like compromise like someone's level of like their recovery, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it doesn't mean, I don't think that it doesn't mean that I wasn't sober, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think it's important to kind of like share that perspective. But I do like work an abstinence-based program, and I will say that it's definitely not for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I have a friend that just got on it. She said she's going to get on it for 2 months. And she said, and it's not that I want to get on it, but I want to stay sober.
Right.
And
Well, as long as you have that goal in mind,
I
you know,
want to stay
then
sober, and I've only been sober for 60 days, and I want to make it long enough to where I can get to that point to where I can say, you know what, I think God's restored me to sanity, and now I can do this on my own. So I told her I'm going to check on you every week and say, hey, how's it going? How's it going? She's only taken half of what she's supposed to take, and as long as I've never thought about like if it had a hold on you like that, like I'm going to go use unless I have something else to help me get to that point to where you feel
Right.
where you're comfortable now.
Right.
Sounds like you had a good doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, like
Yeah.
most doctors would not give a fuck about the other stuff.
Right.
Just like, let me
So,
prescribe you more.
did you finish your steps while on a MAT program?
Yep. I finished so
So I've heard people say it's impossible. I'm not agreeing with this
Yeah.
at all. It's impossible to have a real spiritual experience
for sure.
on a MAT program.
I think that like obviously I can feel like a spiritual difference, but the women around me like really watched me have this spiritual experience and come into this program. I really I hit the ground running like with my steps and getting involved in the program, I prioritize that over anything in my life, like my relationship with God and my program comes before everything else, and yeah, I mean, and my sponsor knew about it, I wasn't like shying away from the fact that I was on it, but I know that, I mean, I don't know, for me, I did have a spiritual experience, and I think that's evidenced by the fact that I was able to get off of it and stay off of it and to continue to be, you know what I mean, to progress in this program and trust God and like, God demonstrates through me like what it's like to have a spiritual experience and be restored to sanity,
sounds like it.
Yeah.
So you work in recovery now,
I do. Yeah.
and what's that like for you?
Yeah. It's extremely rewarding. When I finished treatment, I like really wanted to work at the treatment center I went to. I was like, you guys should hire me. And they're like, you don't even have a license.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, whatever. I really wanted to work there like as a tech. And it wasn't in the cards, and that was like God's will, you know what I mean? Like it was not God's will for me to work at that treatment center. And while I have nothing but good things to say about it, I'm grateful because of the situation that I'm in today. Like I had a little get well job at this day labor staffing agency called HireQuest, and it was amazing. And my boss there is a woman in recovery. She's a woman of faith. She's really been like a really great mentor for me of like, how do I pray and how do I, you know what I mean? Just all of this really basic stuff for someone that's really new in their faith. And I didn't have a vehicle, and I didn't have a license. I would walk from my sober living. It was just right down the street. It was great. And then my friend sent me a link to this job posting of the job that I have now and was like, I think you'd be really good for this position. And so I just applied, and you know, I got the job, and it just turns out that it's a really good fit, like for me, this role in this field, you know. So I like it a lot, you know. I just feel like I applied, and I basically said, I'm going to knock on this door, and if God opens it, that's great. And if he doesn't, like, you know, I'm cool where I'm at. I'm doing well at this job, and I know that the right thing will kind of come along, and it just worked out.
What do you do there?
I'm the outreach manager at Senecor, so I do business development for them. So it's cool. And the way that I even found out about Senecor is I brought like an H&I there, and it was the first place I ever raised my hand to sponsor anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like it's really
has a
cool.
special place.
You know, right? And it's I do like to when I was using and I was so deeply like involved in that lifestyle, there was nobody around me to be like, hey, it doesn't have to be like this. Like you could get better possibly, you know. It was just everybody else was completely content with living the way that they were living, you know. And so it's really important. Like even when I was working at HireQuest, and there were people there that lived on the street and were drinking or doing drugs and had no like intention of changing that. And I could kind of be that voice of if they had a question for me, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, I used to be on the street like flying a sign too, and you can get better if you want to,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, so it's cool.
How's your relationship with mom and dad now?
Yeah, that was my next question.
Oh yeah, my relationship with my parents is incredible. It's great. And honestly, all my relationships today, you know, my parents are divorced. My mom has just came to visit me a couple months ago, and it was great. You know, her and me and my boyfriend all, you know, hung out. He's in recovery too and works in this field as well. And my dad's coming in in September. And it's really great. You know, we talk and we laugh, and I think my parents can sleep a little easier at night. I will say for sure, like I was telling my mom, like, oh, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like eventually, you know, my boyfriend and I want to have kids. And she was like, let's give it 5 years and see if it sticks. You know, like talking about my recovery and everything. And like, I can't fault her for that. You know what I mean? Because for a while, I terrorized my family.
Yeah.
I terrorized them, you know, like you don't even think, I don't have kids. So I always I tell my sponsees that I don't have kids. So I don't know what it's like to like watch your child,
Yeah.
like to you know, or to my dad, when I made amends to him, he was like, what hurts the most is all the time that went by. Like my brother got married, and you know what I mean? And there were funerals and there were reunions and there all these things that I missed, and I didn't even give them a second thought. And like, here I am thinking my dad's going to be like most upset about the money, you know, or, you know, the whatever criminal charges, but it was like the time that went by, you know, that you literally just can't get back. So my relationship with them is amazing. All the relationships in my life today are incredible.
One thing I want to touch on, and I know like we've kind of really wanted to make it a point, and I'm not saying there's a difference, but I think there is a difference as a woman in recovery.
Yeah.
And like one thing we want to do was like we wanted to make sure with our guest, woman, male, woman, male, and not really divert from that, like because it's so important. I think especially for the female aspect, because I mean just the numbers are just unfortunately more male for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just population thing or if it's. Then that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on as well. We wanted to bring you on is because like I see you in the community. I know what you do, and it's so crucial to have a figure like yourself. Not to put you on a pedestal.
No,
but
I
like,
appreciate. Well, you know, here's the thing: is as a woman in recovery, as a heroin addict, especially in recovery, it is my primary purpose to help as many women as I can. Period. End of story. And that's something that, you know, the women in this program, and it literally gives me chills. The women in this program that I look up to have really instilled that in me from day one. Is like, okay, like you've been restored to sanity. Like allow God to demonstrate through you like what is possible and help the next woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah, now
So-
what kind of
right,
thing?
Right.
Like,
And
let's
so
go.
My home group is a women's meeting. You know, the fellowship that I have of women is incredible. It's changed my life. I am not someone that has like friends. You know, there was like a period where I was like thinking if I were to get married, like I wouldn't even have anybody to be a
Bridesmaid.
bridesmaid because
Yeah.
I have no freaking friends, you know. And it's like I have such an amazing group of women today that I would do anything for them, and I know that they would do anything for me. And I've seen women you know, get their kids back. I've seen women get pregnant and have babies that thought
Yeah.
they couldn't have kids. I've seen, and these women come to these meetings every week with their little baby with them. Like that is some badass shit,
Yeah.
you know? Like
That's dope.
it's been absolutely incredible. So, you know, for women, it is extremely, extremely important to me to help the next female heroin addict that's still suffering. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It has given me like a joy and a purpose like no other. You know, it's really gratifying. It's amazing, you know. Yeah.
So I had this thought, and I asked these guys several podcasts ago. It was probably the best question that I ever asked, and I'm like kicking myself in the ass for not asking all the other guests, but I'm going to ask you a pretty loaded question right now.
Yeah.
Because I think it was pretty cool. But what advice would sober you give to addicted you
Sure.
to keep you off of?
Yeah.
Like how would you have helped you,
Yeah.
like personally? Like what do you think?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess like to me, once I was like really deep in my addiction, like honestly, you probably couldn't tell me much. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like what I think the most critical piece of advice I could have given to myself would have been when I was sober, but I was not like working a program and trusting God. And I had all these, you know, I think I know best and blah, blah, blah. It would be get over yourself. Fucking
Yeah.
get over yourself. Humble yourself. You know, like for so long, I'm like, I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. Like life is
Yeah.
bullshit and blah, blah. Like,
Yeah.
dude, nobody wants to be around that shit. And
Yeah.
it's really like to come to believe, right, is a choice for me. And I choose to believe. You know what I mean? And for a while, I chose not to believe, and my life was fucking miserable, dude. People didn't want to be around me. I didn't want to be around me, so I shot dope all the time. You
Right.
know what I mean? And I was completely hopeless. And so it would really just be like, let go, like be fucking willing to hear something different because all my ideas are not working.
Right.
You know what I mean? So be willing to hear something different, you know? And like for me, when I did get sober this time, it was like, okay, God, like I fucking dare you to make this shit different. Like I dare you to work in my life. I dare you to restore me to sanity because like I don't think you know like how bad I am, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? God can do it for anybody.
Snap of the
God
fingers,
can do
man.
it for
Come
on.
anybody. You just have to be willing. Like God will work in my life to the extent that I will allow him to work in my
Open-minded.
life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. You know,
Yeah.
and it's like, it's crazy because I just carried onto this like resentment, you know, and anger like towards God. And it's like I was never willing to like let him in, you know what I mean? But that's the delusion, you know, it's like God hates me. And it's like actually it's more like you hate God.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, just the faith component has been completely different for me. And like, you know, I'll hear people say like, oh, and I had this experience too. I see the word God on the wall and y'all are all holding hands and saying all these prayers that I don't know. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, fuck that, you know, just get over it. Get
Yeah.
over yourself. Be willing to give it a shot. If it doesn't work, dope is always there for you to go back to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like straight up, that shit is not going anywhere, but you may not always have an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the God thing has revolutionized my recovery. You know what I mean?
Made it stick.
Right. Yeah. Is my relationship with God, you know, like even in my personal relationship, like I said, I date a guy that's in the program and he's also a heroin addict and is in
he's
recovery.
awesome.
Yeah, he's a
He's
great guy.
awesome.
He's really cool.
Yeah.
But you know, God comes first for me. God comes first for him. I would never want him to put me and our relationship in front of his relationship with God, you know? And like when you put God in the center of everything, in the center of your personal relationships, in the center of your finances, for me too, in the center of your, you know, like employer relations and everything, that's like amazing things have happened for me because of that. You know what I mean? And like don't fight. It's just we just live like a normal life, and we pray together and go to church together, and it's incredible, you know, and I trust him with my life, you know, and like that's what happens when you put God in the middle, because I have never been one to have a stable relationship ever.
Well,
No.
congratulations.
Like I am crazy without God. Crazy.
You are. It sounds like you deserve it, and
Right.
you've earned it. Like more than deserved it. You earned it. You
Right.
fought hard for it, and just like that, I think we got another episode in the books here.
Okay,
so
cool.
thank you so
You did
much
awesome.
for
Thank y'all
coming
so
by.
much for
Oh,
having
thank
me.
you.
I appreciate it.
thank
That's
you.
No,
cool. All
yeah,
right.
this was great.
Okay,
This was
thank
a
you.
complete unique look at things. So I appreciate you very much for coming
Thank
on.
you. Thank y'all
And-
so much. I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
I will
So
say one thing. As a dad, for what your dad had to tell you, I couldn't imagine telling my daughter that.
yeah, dude.
And the balls that it took for him to say that, and then how proud he's got to be of you now.
Yeah.
It's got to be like,
Well, how proud, but you can't imagine it, but imagine where he was.
Right.
I couldn't imagine
get
seeing my
there.
daughter.
Right.
Like, I would be the biggest enabler. I already know I would
Right.
be.
Yeah, well,
Knowing that I shouldn't be.
Right.
If she called, I'm like, fuck it.
It
Here
goes
I come.
it goes
Here I
against
come.
every
Here I come.
instinct that you have as a parent, you know, and I see it all the time in my line of work is like you like have to turn your back on your child almost, but it's like the longer it still took me a couple years for me to come around after my parents kind of removed themselves from my life, you know, but it's like that kind of stuff really does have to happen because it wasn't helpful to me.
I think Brandon Novak said to enable an addict is to bury an addict.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty profound shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations
Thank you.
on everything
Thank you
and
so
where you're
much.
at now.
You're so appreciated.
Thank
in the
you
community,
so
Kat.
much.
Thank you for everything
I
you
so
do.
appreciate that. Thank you guys so
Yeah.
much. I appreciate it. This is
So,
very cool.
Yeah, so out there, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, comment, reach out if you need
All
anything.
platforms.
Now you can reach out to Kat. She is also, we will put her social media stuff up.
Cool.
Yeah, so we're gonna blast you out there too, and
Thank you for all the messages we get.
yeah. Oh my God, it's
It's hard not to cry reading those, but
Oh,
it,
yeah,
it
it's-
reminds
we
me.
cry.
I cry. We established that beforehand. Like I
we
cry every single
I just
time.
when she said, you know, I think we all feel the same. It's the most rewarding and fulfilling thing. It's not necessarily anything that we're doing. We're just creating space and a platform for experience, strength, and hope to be shared and related to. And you're not alone, and we're in this together, and we're here for you.
That's
Yeah.
how God put us, is prosper and then pay it forward. Right?
Yeah.
Help somebody else.
Yeah. Well, with all that being said, episode 22 in the books. Thank you, Kat, for coming
Thank you guys so
by.
much.
Kat.
Appreciate it.
And Two Addicts and a Moron over and out.
Deuces.
Yay.